use. A second. Okay.
That was kind of loud.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Other programs use it, like Deep Sky Stacker, and the reason why I went to AstroArt was I get stacking with AstroArt that I don't do with Deep Sky Stacker, and
your voice is fading, Mike. I can't hear you.
Oh well, okay. I'll try and move my laptop a little bit closer. I was saying that I went from Deep Sky Stacker to AstroArt because AstroArt seemed to be much more robust as far as stacking my exposures. And I don't know what happened with Deep Sky Stacker that it's not working with my DLSR images. It could be that somehow I clicked on the Bayer matrix or some other thing. They don't have the exact setting for my camera, 600. They got a 400 camera, a Canon 400 camera, and that's what I've been trying to use. Or
I thought DSS looked at the metadata and saw what kind of camera that you have, and it uses that to determine whether you need to deBayer or not. But I could be wrong on that one.
Well, I do know one thing, that I forced it to do something, and the pictures went from red and yellow to light and dark. In other words, colorful light and dark.
So like grayscale rather than color.
Well, no, it went from like shades of red, okay, with a little bit of orange in the bright spots, to black and colored, and it still didn't properly stack, which I could do with AstroArt. And in a way, I prefer to use Deep Sky Stacker, because they do use the bias. And I'm not sure that it could be I've got something in AstroArt. I'm still learning to use it, but it didn't seem like it was using the bias for the darks, only for the flats, I believe.
Well, that's just about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, what do I try and do? I do my darks, my flats, my dark flats, dark for my flats, and my and my images, and my bias. I do bias too. And reading from Richard Berry, he says you want to really do a lot of bias. It takes quite a few, like about 30, to really get things down more accurately due to the distribution. Initially he said 10 for the darks, but in other cases you want to go more. I guess when they were dealing with whatever they had to work with, that the bias mattered a lot more than the darks did, as far as getting ultimate smoothness. So I've done quite a bit with the AstroArt and learning some of its tools. And as you know, I have a history of globular stars. In other words, the stars look like globs instead of stars. And so I've been experimenting with some of the filtering to reduce that. And I've been getting some decent star reduction on it. And hey, Tim.
Hi.
And
hi, Tim.
And so I've been learning about it, but there's a couple of filters that are mentioned in this book that one is sort of like digital development, which is sort of like making your images look like film, but there's another one where it goes into the sort of like a point spread function reduction to get back smearing and other defects to make it much more.
Yeah, you know, the point spread function is what I use. I make a point spread function from the image by using something called a dynamic PSF. And what it does is it gives you a positionally dependent, basically a positionally dependent point spread function for wherever you are on the image. You have to select the stars yourself manually.
Oh, so you could probably compensate for.
Yes, you can. That's what I use in deconvolution.
Spherical aberration and.
Exactly. When you do deconvolution, it allows you to put in a canned PSF versus roll your own type of PSF. So I always do my own PSF, and you put it in there as an external PSF, and that's what sharpens the stars and makes them more, smaller images. And it also sharpens the nebula as well.
Yeah. One of the things that this book also was covering, which unfortunately on the Deep Sky Stacker doesn't have it, and but Registax has it, is the wavelets. And this book has a very good explanation on why you want to use it and how to use it and why it's better than some of the other filtering functions. And he goes on to show where you can get not only sharpness on certain parts of your image, but you also can blur it, get rid of the background noise in your, let's say your sky background. And it's probably in your Pix Insight. That's what you're using, right?
Yeah, they do have the same stuff.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, I hadn't thought about that, and then I was told that that the Registax will handle large DLSR type of images. So what I might have to do for now, until I get another program, is get the best that I can see, go into Registax, use the wavelets to enhance various things, and then go back out,
So you stack it externally and then go into Registax and use the wavelets in there. Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to see if Registax will handle things.
Because I'm wondering how it would stack deep sky. You'd think that it'd be optimized for shorter exposures. I'm just wondering.
I don't know. I haven't used Registax for a long time, and one of the reasons why I use Deep Sky Stacker is that Registax just wasn't doing the job, but maybe the fact that they've gone through a couple of revisions like everybody else, they've finally tuned it. And then the other thing too is probably once it's one of these things where you can go through all these different tools and you're constantly learning, and you're not getting to be an expert in any one because you got so many tools. But AIP for Windows has quite a bit of tools, and they have the wavelets, and they have supposedly all the functionality for doing everything. But I found it a little bit hard to use, and
thanks.
They don't have as many tutorials that I really need to get up to speed. So I kind of knew AstroArt before by trying it, so I'm trying to get as much out of AstroArt. And besides AstroArt, supposedly is sort of like cradle to grave. It's supposed to control your auto guiding, your acquisition, and then processing.
Thank you.
So So I guess what I'm going to be doing is going through a phase where I'm going to try and go through AstroArt to see where I can get to, and if I need to.
Pardon me, I'm going to eat in front of you. My dinner just caught up with me.
Oh, okay. Okay. Do you have to tip the waiter?
No, I tip her later.
Boy, don't put any ideas in anybody's head.
Jerry, you could turn off your video.
How?
You just click on
stop video
on your name. There you go.
Okay.
That reminds me, they caught that guy that was a cannibal or something like that.
What?
On the internet, some survivalist guy or whatever. He ate people.
Jesus.
Well, I guess he
I guess what would you expect, huh? Survivalist and all.
Yeah, right. Anyways, okay, AIP, which you can't get now legally, but you can get for free because Richard Berry supports it. This is this book here. Okay. This book is like well over $200 now.
Wow.
Okay. Because William Bell's no longer available. Okay. You got these here probably, right?
I don't have that.
The winner.
I gave mine away to the club, I think.
Okay, well this one's worth about $100. This one's worth probably closer to $200 to $300.
Yeah, I gave mine to the club.
Okay.
Go get it back.
And this skinny $30 book, okay, from last week, okay. I went online because the prices shift. This hasn't changed. It's still selling for $809 on eBay.
What?
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so whenever, tell your friends when they retire and they want to move, and there's a tendency for people to be told, get rid of it because you won't use it. Hang on to it. Because
you know that rukl lunar atlas by rukl?
It's gone down in price.
Yeah, it went because they came out with another edition. But for a while there, those things were going for up in the $1,000 range.
Yeah,
they're really expensive.
There's another one that they're actually going down in price, and I'm thinking about getting it.
How do you spell that, Roku? How do you spell that?
RUKL, I believe.
Rukl.
Okay.
No, it's something else, Mom.
RU with a special U.
The umlaut.
Yeah. Okay. And so
I think it's RUKL, I think.
Yeah, you just showed it there.
Umlaut UKL. Right. But there's two books called Lunar Cognita. That I have a friend has a job, and he's really getting into iPhone astrophotography. He's doing great. And so he's really into the moon, and so he recommends those books also. Those are still being published, and they're not that expensive. But
that rukl book, Mike, they stopped publishing it again. I think it was like a 15th edition, and I don't know if they stopped it or started it again.
I don't know. This one's pretty nice. I mean, there's a newer edition that's supposed to be better for looking in the dark.
Did you guys say Lunar Incognito?
Yeah, but it's a book.
Okay.
That's funny.
I like it.
It's sold out.
I like it.
So anyways, I'm learning how to get past the light pollution issue. And this book has been really good. I mean, Jerry, who is still munching away on his dinner, I think it's spare ribs, said that this is a really great book, and it is. I just never got around reading it because I was too busy with work and all. But I kept it. I had the first edition and the second edition. And the first edition, the program was about 1 or 2 steps above the user interface of the original program that was written in
What was the author? What, Richard Berry?
Richard Berry and
Richard.
And Burnell.
Okay.
Burnell is one of the guys that does the astronomy photo of the day, APOD.
I see.
Jerry Burnell.
Yeah.
Okay, Burnell.
And between both of them, I can't believe, I'm reading this and everything. I mean, there's so much in one book compared to a lot of other places where believe me, there's a lot of good people out there, but they don't all put everything in one place. And this one, as I was telling Dick, I was telling Jerry, it's got a chapter on how to determine the actual performance of your camera, so that you know exactly what it does at the temperature and the linearity and the sensitivity electrons per ADU, so that you can say to yourself, well, if my light pollution is this, what can I get away with tonight? What's the optimum exposure? And I don't know of any program that does that. I mean, and basically you have to determine it. You have to have these numbers, and then you go and you do a couple relatively minor calculations, and you come up with, I need to be F10 at 3 minutes. That's my optimum. And so, in a way, it's a little bit dated because it does cover the DLSRs, they first came out and all that. So it gives the flow for that. But a lot of their CCD cameras are the SBIG, and they talk about the other other older cameras that are no longer made. That doesn't cover the new CMOS cameras, which probably they would write a little differently because they behave a little differently, although they allude to it. But
so most of the stuff here is CCD related, right?
Although they do have quite a bit on DLSRs.
CMOS. Yeah.
Yes, CMOS. I mean, they do. There is a lot of parallel. I mean, but there's some difference. One of the things with CCDs is there's less of a tendency in your bias frames to show. Well, CCDs have truly random bias frames, okay, whereas CMOS does not. And so theoretically, if you probably wanted the most performance, I would imagine you'd want to go to CCDs and live with whatever the cost or whatever the negative things are. But again, they talk about
I debate that. I think at this point, CMOS is where it's at.
They're getting very close.
Oh, I think they've actually achieved better cameras with CMOS than CCD. The issue with CCDs is you have row and column effects, and the amplifier propagation is such that the speed is not very good.
No, it isn't.
With CMOS, you don't have row and column amplifiers. You have them built into each pixel. So there are distinct advantages to CMOS. The other thing is the technology is being driven by cell phones. And cell phones are all in the APC sensor size range, not in 35 millimeter above. So I'd say my advice to people who are looking for buying a camera is stay in that sweet spot. I mean, I'm 35 millimeter and I've already adapted to that, but I would say it'd be much easier to stay in that sweet spot with that APC size sensor, because the technology is being driven by all of these phones. So that's where that's where you want to be.
Anyways, last night, change the subject, we had our second in-person meeting with the Windy Skies observers. We didn't have very many people. I think a lot of people were kind of scared, and we only had one person on the Zoom meeting where we had about 4 or 5, and probably most of the people that came to the meeting would be on Zoom. So we had a telescope clinic, and over the last year, I've helped about 6 to 8 people with their telescopes. People would call me up, and I would help them, and I was hoping other people would come, but they didn't. But so our subject was telescope clinic, which I think you guys have every year also, or did, you know, and might have again, you know, to encourage people to bring their telescopes. And so the feature scope was the COVID scope. And so I brought that.
The COVID scope?
The COVID junkoscope. That's the thing in my, hold a second here. Virtual background. Okay, there's the COVID junkoscope, okay? Made out of scrap 2x4s, gator board, and 2 toilet flanges that somehow never made it to the bathroom. So, hold a second. Is it on my background now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I'll just keep it that way. So anyways, and there's Bob, of course. He says nothing.
Big Bob.
Yeah, no arguments from him. So the only piece. Okay, if I can. Whoops. Okay, it's sort of like a new skill here. Okay, so this is where my focuser is. This thing slides up and down, and the the eyepiece and the diagonal are connected in one piece. And what I'm thinking about doing is, oh, come on. Okay. Between here and there is to install, you know how they have those hooked, what do they call it? It's a bunch of eyelet hooks with a big long nut in between.
Turnbuckle?
Turnbuckle, got it. Put a turnbuckle there and get rid of the focuser. Because all I need is, like, I can get a large turnbuckle and get them like 3 or 4 inches. And, you know, that's another piece I could say, well, I made it myself, you know, and and so that assembly would slide up and down with the turnbuckle. Whoops. This way, it goes up and down. Okay. My video's the opposite way. But what I really want to do is redo this telescope so that it's not so big to put in the Yukon, and the base is rather heavy. It's about 40 pounds. So what I'd like to be able to do is have something that you kind of unfold and voila, there's a telescope, you know. And I think I could do it, but right now it kind of sits in the shed because it's been so windy that, you know, I haven't been able to use it.
Hey, Mike, do you know anybody who wants some 12-inch mirror blanks, pyrex blanks?
Oh, geez. I'm coming down next month.
Now that's a standard blank. So the ratio is 6:1. So that blank is 2 inches thick for a 12.5 inch.
Yeah.
It weighs about 45 pounds.
which means that it weighs 4 times the weight of my 14-inch mirror. Because my mirror is like 3/4 of an inch thick.
Is this from Dimitri?
No, this is one I picked up today from the Douglas Telescopic guy, Doug Bryson's house, where his daughter is cleaning it out, and garage is filled with all sorts of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And so that's one. Then we had another one in the shed already. And then she also had a couple of 6-inch blank. One was mirrored. It didn't look like it'd been parabolized, but maybe very slightly or something. But this guy was, was doing telescopic stuff in the 60s through the 90s, I guess. He died last November.
The common 6-inch mirror then was f8, which is a very slight depression.
Yeah. Doug had a lot of those 6-inch f8s. He had a lot of those sitting around. I even got a couple of them, I think.
Yeah, well, I've got to get going on my other projects. I keep telling
now, Mike,
myself,
with your COVID scope there, are you saying that the entire upper cage is what focuses it? It's stationary and it just slides up and down.
No, actually,
you're going to put a turnbuckle on?
I have a focuser that you guys gave me a long time ago, and I took it off of my 10-inch and put it on there. And,
okay.
And because the 10 inches in another assembly, and so, but I could theoretically get rid of it because with using a turnbuckle that whole slide up and down.
Andy Allen made a 8-inch reflector, and the tube, he connected the tube in a way so that they slid inside of each other.
Yeah.
And the reason he did it is because he couldn't bring it to the star parties any other way. He just had too small of a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just too long. So he made it so that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the one thing with this scope is it's f3.9, and everybody was at the meeting was remarking, it's so short. Yeah, even the women go, I could look through this. I said, yeah, well, that's the reason why I made it that way. But you know, you have to keep things.
Can I go ahead? Finish.
You have to keep things exactly aligned, or you know, it's.
Or you have to realign it after you expand the tube.
Yeah, right. But another thing too is the eyepieces. The one thing I didn't realize, centering your eye on the eyepiece becomes more critical, I discovered. And because it's a lot harder on these eyepieces.
So let me show you a flow chart of how I process images. I think you covered some of this. Maybe you already know all this, but
yeah.
Let me, if I can find it. There it is.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Okay. Now, this is, I used a 50DH, a Canon 50DH, and Hutek had altered the camera so it had a temperature sensor on the focal plane. So I couldn't control the temperature, but I knew what it was. And then I also used a 60DA, which is Canon's factory version of one with the red filter toned down so it will let more hydrogen alpha light through.
Right.
And I would use that in the raw mode, and then in a program called Nebulosity, which I think is Nebulosity 4 now.
Which I have a copy.
You what?
I have a copy of that.
Yeah. Then I would change raw to FITS, the standard thing that has a real nice, what do they call it? A set of parameters that it stores with it, a legend. And then I did a calibration step, and the calibration step consisted of some of these things. And I did them in CCD Stack 2. I would make a master flat, and I'd apply that to calibrate it. And you do each of these manually. Now, a lot of the programs that are out today, like Registack and I forget the other ones, but they do, yeah, they do a lot of these steps automatically, which is fine. But when you do it automatically, they have preset values that they're going to apply. If you do it manually, you can look at the image and you can tweak it to get optimize each step. And this is the way it was taught to me by Adam Block about 12 years ago. And this is the technique I use. And then I have master darks, which I also then calibrate with. You put all these together and let CCD Stack 2 pick on them, pick them as it needs. Master bias frames. And I make about a dozen to 20 of each of these things to average them together to make a master. The CCD Stack 2 has an application where it makes the master for you. Now, when you don't have temperature control, doing a master dark is very hard because it's trying to figure out the brightness of the dark current and for your bad actors in the pixels, and to measure that and take it away. But if you're off in temperature a little bit, then you're taking away too much or not enough. So I really prefer, after doing that, I do what's called a bad pixel map, which Nebulosity offers. And what this one does is it shows you where the bad pixels are, but it doesn't tell you the value of their badness. This one tells you where they are and how much they're bad, and it tries to subtract it. This one just tells you where the bad one is, and then you add a pixel correction program to it, and it averages the nearest neighbors on both X and Y and fills in the one with the blank. That way you avoid over subtraction. Could you get me a glass of water, please?
Yeah. Do you want any more food?
No, that's good. Perfect. Thanks. Okay. And then this G2V ratio, that's a star that is our sun type. Our sun is a G2V star. So you look up on a table, you look up all the different G2V stars in the magnitude range where your camera is going to not saturate on them. And you take pictures of those and you do deBayer, and you can determine the ratio of RGB that you need when later you want to put your pictures back together. And after the bad pixel correction, which we don't use the G2V stuff till the very end, then I go to a deBayer and I generate from that a luminance image and a red image, a green image, and a blue image. And in doing that, this is what the deBayer stage looks like in CCD Stack 2. You have to tell it the Bayer pattern. And I've got one circled here for RGGB. And there's two G's because the human eye is most sensitive to G. So if you do any of these other things by error, and the way you pick the right one, if you don't know, this is for Canon. Canon uses this pattern. If you pick the wrong one, then your image comes out, like the Rosette Nebula is all red. It comes out all green or all blue. So you can tell you picked the wrong RGB pattern. So, yeah. So the waiter's back. I'm just kidding. Thank you. So then I break them up and do that RGB step, which is, oh God, where is it? Where I was looking. Nope. Nope. Huh.
You're looking for a Sigma reject, STD reject?
No, I'm looking for where I had my slide charts open again, which is a PowerPoint. And I thought I had oh, that's right. It's an image. It was a JPEG. Huh.
So that stuff that you sent around on email, that's something else, right?
That's another guy's opinion and another guy's approach. What I've encapsulated for you in this slide I'm desperately trying to find is the thing that Adam Block teaches,
Okay.
which is different. Oh, how'd that get in there?
So you wind up using yet another program, Mirror Pro.
Let me get out of this and then I'll find it and get back in.
Okay.
So,
Neat.
oh, there we are. Okay, let's get back into, this was a talk I gave at the SBAU meeting in 2016. The TN down there is what they called amateur astronomers in the 1920s telescope nut. So, oh, and this was the joke I started with. This was a while ago. So,
Yeah.
there. So after deBayer, then you have each of these things, the luminance and each color. And then I go through and I manually identify 7 stars around the edge of each frame, which is a fairly tedious process, but it's all manual. And in a program called Mira Pro, because that had the best, according to Adam, it has the best alignment program algorithm in it. And so you register everything, and then you stack these in a stack of things that are all aligned. They're not combined yet, but they're all aligned, so they haven't been stacked. And then you normalize the things so that one doesn't dominate, so they all have about the same contribution to the stack. And then I do a standard sigma reject, 1 sigma reject, and then go through a mean combine, which doesn't add them up, it adds and divides, so you don't saturate anything that wasn't saturated. And this is the actual stacking process. Then you go through things in Maxim, you flatten the background, and this is where and by that it means you take out any residual gradients that were in there from the master flat that it didn't get. So, and then
so you're using sigma rejection and mean, so you're using average, right?
A mean is an average, yes, it's an average.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not, okay.
Yeah.
So you're using sigma reject on, hold a second, on the registers, but they're not stacked. So
they're not stacked yet. And so sigma reject goes through each one of the thing. It goes through the whole stack and it finds anything that is abnormal. Like if one star, out of 12 images, 1 star, there's a streak going off it because a wind gust hit you. It will find that and it will eliminate that from the stack when it goes to the stack.
Is that the same as a standard deviation?
Yeah, sigma means standard deviation.
Yeah, it's 1 sigma.
Yeah, sigma.
1 sigma.
So 2 sigma would be 2 standard deviations.
Yeah.
But that doesn't get rid of a satellite track or something like that.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, anything that's unique to one frame, subframe, will be eliminated. So if you're looking for asteroids, you got to find another way because the asteroid is unique to each frame. So then you flatten the background, which means you take away the gradients. And then you go back to register under Mira Pro. And now you register the luminance, red, green, and blue. So they all exactly overline again. And then I go through, before I combine them, I deconvolute the luminance, only the luminance. And then I compress the RGB into 1 chrominance frame. And then this goes into Photoshop, and then this goes into Photoshop as separate things. I do separate things to them in Photoshop, and then later I'll flatten them into a single picture. Now, this is the same thing that all your other programs do in pretty much this order, because that's the order you have to do it in. But up until you use, when you do I have that in here? Bad correct, pixel impute register. Yes, up till this point, yeah, I don't have the stretching in there. The dark.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten much processing done really at this point, although you do have some deconvolution.
Right. So everything everything that's on this slide leaves it with scientific validity. That is, nothing has been distorted. But when you get into the next step is when you get into stretching, linear stretching, then you're okay. But once you do nonlinear stretching, then it loses all its scientific value, because now brightnesses, you can't do photometry on it anymore. The brightnesses are all screwy. So yeah, after that, it becomes a pretty image. So that's what I use for this. I have.
So you have to do this manually. There's no way of automating this.
Well, there are handy things. For example, in CCD Stack, I can open, I just tell it to open, and I'll give it like 20 subframes, and it'll open them all. And then I can quickly scroll through them like a blink comparator or something to see if there's anything I really don't like. But almost anything can be handled. And so they're within each of these areas, it's highly automated. But this is the application of specific algorithms that are covered in the book by Steve Berry. And so by looking at doing it manually, I can look at the results, and if it looks all screwy, I can go back and do it. Whereas if you do it automatically, you just put them in and it stacks them up. Sometimes you get, oh geez, how did that happen? One of the guy, Robert Richard isn't with us tonight, but he concluded a presentation it stuck with me that he made at the club meeting one night, where he said, it's so interesting because you never know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get a stunningly beautiful picture, and sometimes it just comes out all screwy. That's because he uses totally automatic systems. And if you do it this way, you always get good results. You can undo anything that's screwy. You can catch it as it screws. So.
And Jerry, you say that everything on this slide, before you get to Photoshop, you can use in Science, and then after that, you can't use it. Now, how would they...
No, the first thing in Photoshop, you start stretching the picture, because if you actually look at the picture that you generate after this chart, you look, it's just black. There's nothing you can see really. And so as soon as you put it in Photoshop, then you linearly stretch it. You adjust the black level and the white level, and then that brings your image up. And as long as you do all that linearly, it's still of scientific value. It still has a calibrated brightness. But as soon as you do a non-linear stretch, that is, brighter things are stretched less than dimmer things, and now you can't do any comparison between stars for brightness or photometry, because you've messed it all up. But it still makes a better picture. And that's really what we're after here. We're not after so much scientific accuracy.
See, Deep Sky Stacker will allow you to do nonlinear before you even save it.
It'll allow you to do nonlinear adjustments to the, I think, to the dark frame. And that's okay.
Well, no, on the luminance thing, it's got a thing where you want it to be linear, log, and all that.
Okay, so, well then that it mixes one of those steps back here in this process.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Deep Sky Stack. Yeah, but all that stuff is done after the stack is done.
Yeah.
That's just, and that's when you want to save off an image like a TIFF or something like that. You can stretch it inside Deep Sky Stacker, but
Okay.
What do you guys mean by stretching?
Stretching?
Yeah.
Let's see if I've got that on.
Well, okay, what you got basically is, what Jerry was talking about is you got an image that is really pretty dark. Okay. And you might be able to see a few stars on it dimly. Okay. That's about all you're going to be able to see. So in order to see anything, you have to basically enhance that brightness. And let's say without maybe getting too much of the dark area that you want to get. So you're going to have, in order to do that, in order to make it brighter, you're going to have to do a process to that thing that is going to permanently change that image. It was linear before, and that process is a nonlinear process when you do that, okay? The best way to do it is to probably look at a curves, and then you can kind of see what you're talking about. I just got one up here, I think.
Yeah, this is what your picture looks like as it comes into Photoshop. And you see all the pixels. This is a histogram of the number of pixels that are at this brightness. A normal picture, if you took a picture on a sunny day of a picnic in your backyard, the histogram would be like this, because this is the normal range of brightness that you'd see. But for the sky, it's all really dark. So you can adjust the dark level by sliding this thing. This is a picture, I can't do it. And the white level by sliding this back and forth. And then when you do that, let's see what we have next. Oh yeah. So then you start bringing out the picture. See, I slid the white level all the way down here, and that started bringing this stuff out. But this is a linear stretch because I'm just moving along this line. And then you go to what's called curves or a nonlinear stretch. And see, I can take, this is where you start. You're on this line, and then you can place your cursor on right there, and then you can drag it up here, and then the whole rest of the curve, it's a spline. It will follow and fill in the smoothness, make it smooth. And when you do that, you're bringing up the dim stuff, but you're not bringing up the bright stuff. I actually reduced the bright stuff up here to make what Tony Hallis calls an insurance policy, and he calls it the no-fly zone up here, so that you don't let this touch the ceiling, because otherwise that will saturate some stars.
Super saturate. Yeah,
you lose the color in them. So that's how he does it. And then doing this kind of nonlinear stretch, at this point, once you do that, you've lost photometric value. And you can do a nonlinear stretch like this roughly 3 times before the image starts breaking down on you and it pixelates or something. And that brings up galaxy extremes and stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
See how it's getting wider as you stretch it. So at first, what he showed you was just like a straight line going straight up. Now it's starting to get some definition to it. See, now you can see what the stretching is all about. You're actually stretching that histogram curve out, okay? And that's making it brighter. Brightness being towards the right there.
So the left side here, you see like a lighter.
The left side is the darkest.
To get to the right side.
The brightest stuff is the right side.
Yeah. See, if I define black to be here, then all my image, it starts at gray. But if I move the black up to here, then my image starts at black, and that makes the background look black.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Right there, just what Jerry said. That's how I make the sky black.
Yeah.
Just what he said right there, because what you're going to get.
The little slider on the left.
Yeah, you're going to pull the curve. Right? When you do the curve,
you slide it to the
right. Pull that curve down, let's say at the beginning of where the histogram starts. And that'll keep your dark, that'll keep your dark data from showing up and making showing the light pollution that's coming through.
Oh yeah, and then there's other things. When you do some of these things, you produce halos around stars and dark centers, so you have to work at getting them out. And when you stretch color images, they lose their brilliance, so you have to resaturate them. So this is NGC 7331 in Pegasus. So going back, these are the steps that I do for each one, from pre-processing for the luminance and the RGB. This is what I do in Photoshop. First, white level in layers, that's the linear stretch. Brighten in curves, that's a nonlinear stretch. Then I make a high pass filter, blend high pass with luminance, paste the L on the RGB and flatten into a single color image. Then I switch to Color Lab instead of RGB colors to adjust yellow-blue contrast. I always have trouble with that color stuff. I don't think I really understand color. And then I do Noise Ninja to clear up the background color and clean up artifacts. And that's where I get the final image. But this was my assistant at the time. He's always checking on what I'm doing here.
So that's where the knowledge base is.
Yeah, that's the brains of the outfit. So that was Eddie. And here is, this is the effect of before convolution and after convolution. See, the stars are smaller after convolution. Here's before, here's after. So
and you're doing this in Photoshop?
Yeah, no, I'm doing this.
You're doing that before Photoshop.
Yeah,
okay,
before Photoshop.
That's that deconvolution
in
step
CCD stack too. And this is about 50 iterations of deconvolution. So
okay.
After that, see, here's a double star here. You can't resolve them. And then see, you
still
can't resolve them, but they're tighter.
Yeah.
So it makes the stars really nice. It brings out a lot of stuff. It makes graininess in the background, and you have to watch for that. And then you have to do a noise ninja.
Yeah, you can do some noise reduction. Yeah.
So that's what I do for these different steps.
Bode's Galaxy. Pretty. I got a couple things I want to show if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's see them.
First off is this is the results. I got something down here. This is just from the tree when I started to shoot, and my shop roof when I ended up to shoot. So this is the results of the 24 millimeter. And you know what I really liked about it was, Mike, you know, your suggestion, you tone down some of the masking, and which I did on this one right here. And normally on the small stars, I'm doing probably about just to kind of give you a relative scale, about 0.8 on the convolution. And then for the large structure here, it's about 22. So it's very convoluted, and you can kind of see some of the structure. Now, if you want to see some things, well, you can see there's your pipe right there.
Yep.
There's your pipe. And you were talking about B44, Jerry.
Uh-huh.
There you are right there. You're tracing it right on over. There's the lagoon. Let's see here. We've got lagoon, Triffid. That's your swan, and that's your eagle. So they're all there. So that came out pretty good. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take a picture of the tree at night and kind of stick it over here, kind of fake it a little bit on that guy right there.
Have someone walk over there with a flashlight and illuminate.
Yeah, and shine it on the tree. Totally. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. And then.
So what's the make of your 24 millimeter lens? That's a good lens.
Rinconen.
Oh, Rinconen.
Is it Rinconen? Rinconen. I can never get the name quite right. But yeah, it's 1.4, f1.4 stop to f4. And those are, let's see, 6-minute exposures at ISO 800. I'm using a CLS filter, and I can't remember who makes it. It's not the Moon and Sky Glow like I typically use. So, but that's it right there.
Okay.
And then let me get the other guy going here. Let's see here. Let me see here. Where's the share? There we are. There you go. 3-panel mosaic.
Oh, that's very nice.
MP127IS, 3-panel.
Mm-hmm.
And this one came out really neat. I really like it a lot. Mm-hmm. It's 7-minute subs. Filterless. It's the filter, Jerry. That's what was causing the ray effect. Okay. Yeah. Now this is a little undermasked here, but the bigger stars are pretty good. There's a little bit of deconvolution circling, but not too bad. It's not too bad, and I really like the way that this came out.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Kind of like the pillars, man. The pillars of creation, except it's It's this guy right here. And so there are some artifacts. There's one right here. There's a pinch. You see, my problem is.
This is the North American nebula, right?
Yeah, that's North American, and Pelican's over here.
And Pelican, yeah.
The Pelican came out really cool.
Pillars of creation are in the Eagle Nebula.
Yeah, I know, but I said it's like those.
Oh, like, yeah.
Yeah,
right,
it's like the pillars. See, because look at that right down there. I mean, it's just like going up here in the sky. So it is like the pillars. And so that's a 3-panel. It takes about 6 nights, a couple of nights. Actually, the first panel I think took more than that because the weather was pretty inclement and the moon.
Is the witch's broom in there?
No, witch's broom is, you're talking about the veil, which is relatively close, but you would have to go to Cygnus. Let me see if I could. I mean, maybe I could.
It's out on.
It's past one of the wings.
I'm sorry.
It's just past one of the wings of Cygnus.
Yeah, it's on one of the wings of Cygnus is where we're at here. I don't know if I've got a shot in here. I might not. We
started Deneb, and then you draw a line through. I think it's called 52 Cygni. And then it's right there. Mm-hmm. It's right on top of it.
Yeah, 52 Cygni is right in there.
Is Deneb the orange star?
Tim is probably the very best star hopper I've ever met. He knows how to get from one to anywhere else.
Yeah, 52 Cygni, it's smack dab in the middle
of
the nebula.
Let me see if I can get this. I got to stop sharing. And then I can share. There we go. So what we're looking at is right here. That's the North American.
Yeah.
Okay, and what the loop is over here.
Right.
So right here.
No, above.
No, that's it. Right there. You can see
below. But you can kind of barely see a little bit of it here. You use your imagination. Now this is an example of it being done a little bit more poorly. That what I'm going to probably go back and redo this so it's not quite so drastic on the large scale masking. But you know what? What's really cool, and you were talking about how good the lens is. Well, look at how the stars imaging came out here in comparison to that other image.
Yeah, that was what.
Why is it so much better?
I don't know.
It's so much better because that camera is locked to the guide star.
Oh,
see, so you're not changing the projection of the image on the sensor. Very important to get small stars with low focal length lenses, especially lenses that are less than, let's say, the size of the sensor, which in this case it is, it's 24 millimeters as opposed to 35. You're going to get distortions as a result of that. So you've got to lock these guys in. I have 2 screws. I have a screw, regular tripod screw, and I have another screw that's a jam nut that's jamming that base of that camera so the camera can't even swivel. So the position between it and the guide star is locked from night to night. This is the first ever double night, 2-night shooting, night to night that I've ever done with a 24 millimeter lens. And the reason why is because you try to do the second night and you can't stack it because there's too much, the image shifting is too much on those stars, so you can't do it. So when you get it, when you lock it in like this, you're going to get sharper stars. You're not going to get as blurred out as what you were. So, but that's just one thing right there that I kind of found out, just the hard way, really, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's one of those things that you just never know until you start fooling around with it, what the heck is going on. So anyway.
Dick, you're not using any auto guiding on that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all auto guided. You can't, on my machine, you really can't, you can't go much more than, say, I'm going to say maybe a few seconds without really probably some kind of guiding, especially when you're starting to use something like the 10-inch, that's 1,000 millimeters. This guy here, okay, he is 660 millimeters, but then of course you're making a bigger sensor out of it. See, you got a lot of detail in here that you wouldn't normally have with, let's say, well, with the red cat, for example, you got much more detail here. So,
now, you know, are all those stars, the nebula you have there, are the stars in front of the nebula, or are they showing?
Some of them
are,
nebula? Some of them are, and some of them are peeking through. See, so it's really hard to tell. Now, I'd say these really bright guys, they got to be close, so they're probably in front of the dark nebula, and maybe even some of these other ones that look like they're not as bright. Okay. But then you start to look at some of this other stuff, and it kind of makes me wonder what the heck is going on over here. See, you got a point spread of the star here, okay, but yet it's not the whole star image itself. So there's something is peeking through the nebula, the dark nebula itself. The other thing too is notice the changing colors of the nebula where there are no real star images that you can see. It's being backlit by stars that are underneath it. So that all those artifacts are there. That's one thing that came out in the whole thing. And then I guess the only other thing I would like to show you is the results of the printout. Now let me see if I can do a better job than I've been doing on this. And I'll just kind of put it up here and we'll just leave it there for the duration. I don't know if you could really see that very well or not.
We can.
But that's kind of it right there.
Oh yeah, you can see that. I can see it.
Yeah. Came out pretty good.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot.
No bubbles, Dick?
No bubbles, but you know what? I had to go through one gator board because I got hasty when I started pulling the stuff out. And I got going a little bit too far with the plastic covering over the gluey stuff, and got it out of situation. So you just got to kind of don't lead it too much, just kind of like lead it a little bit. So I went through one board. So now I got to go over some more board because I got the one that doesn't have any glue on it. I'm gonna probably use that one for some smaller works, and then just try the rubber cement and see how well I do that one. So
yeah, you could always turn it over and use the other side.
Yeah, you know, there I've got one. That's true, and that's not a bad idea actually, to tell you the truth, because I got the one with the crappy stuff on it. Because you know you're not going to get it off there now. That stuff is really tacky. It goes on there really good. I mean, and then after I get it down, that way I put the adhesive back covering over the top of the print, and I take a rolling pin and roll it down that way there. So by the time I get done doing that, it's down solid path.
Did it cup your board at all?
Did it cup it? You know, I don't know. I'm gonna say no. I mean, it's like right now, it's against the painting, and it's like all the way in the back. So okay. I can't see really any line. Let me show you these one things they got that are kind of cool. And what I like about this board a lot is, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's like a little clip on here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That clip, what I had to do was I drilled a couple holes in to the back of the board. See, and it's laminated on each side. There's two layers on this guy right here. Okay, and so you get, if you go too far, you'll hit that other side. But it doesn't take much to go through the board, and that gives you enough. There's like two spikes on these little clips, and you just poke those two spikes in, and then once that thing is in there, I don't know, man, I can't get it out. It would be hard to get out. But what's really cool is you can bend it out, see, more, and the backing on this stuff is hard enough, and it's pretty tough stuff. So that it won't come. And if you tried to do that on a regular foam board, well, shoot, the thing would probably just freaking rip apart.
This gator bait.
I made a chessboard one time out of you know, obviously contrasting colored woods, you know, and one was like a walnut, the other one was a curly maple, and it was really beautiful. And I was talking to a guy that's a master woodworker, and I said, well, I want to glue a piece of plywood on the back so I can really fix it. I don't trust this because I glued end grain to end grain, which is not a good way to go. Mm-hmm. And he goes, don't do it. I said, why? He goes, don't do it. And I wouldn't listen to him. And that sucker, it looked like a fruit bowl by the time the time it dried.
You know, the one thing. You know, the one thing that you were asking about was the board, and can you do the same thing with sheetrock? And yes, you can. Because I was having such time cutting this stuff. It seems like I'm going through razor blades, like going out of style, you know. And so I just said, the heck with it. I'm going to try what Tim was thinking about. And so I tried it. It does work. But you got to still kind of play with it. I think there's got to be a better way to do it.
These guys, we used to work next to a glass shop. And we'd go next door, and these guys would be showing me, you know, how they're cutting big sheets of glass. And I was just blown away. They take these little, makes a difference what kind of a cutter you got. It really made a difference. And they just had a way of hitting it with that diamond roller. And then they put a long bar just in the right place. And the guy just tap it. And the whole thing would fall and be perfect. You know, and you'd be going, how in the hell did you do that? You know?
That's why I guess it's a trade. Yeah.
Speaking about,
they just do what they were doing. Yeah. And the sheetrock guys do the same thing. They just sit there and they go, what? Bang. And it's done. You know? Not me. I'm from the baby bear cub school.
So you one of those got to do it the hard guys like me, huh?
Oh yeah,
I did it the
hard way.
Yeah, I did it the hard way.
My little fruit bowl chessboard was really kind of cool. You make a move and everything falls to the middle, you know. So I had to belt sand the crap out of the back, and then I got away with it, you know. And then I glued felt on the back of that. I still have the board. One of these days I'm gonna refinish it. All the finishing I did on this stuff. But we used to talk about this in the dental lab all the time. My buddy would be, you know, one of the guys that shared an overhead. You'd make a gold crown for a patient. That thing would be gorgeous. It's just really nice. And then I'd do this really fast polish job on it and send it out. And the guy goes, what are you doing that for? You spend days doing this work and then you don't finish it. And I did the same thing with wood. I'd be sitting there doing a really nice piece out of wood and I'd put some crappy piece of like varnish or something over it. And one of the things that's really horrible is when you're using any spar varnish. The spar varnish and regular varnish, they're two different animals. That spar varnish, it puts all these ripples in the surface. So along with this chessboard, just beautiful chessboard, the colors of the walnut and this curly maple, I mean, it had a three-dimensional quality, but not after I painted it. It didn't look that way at all.
At least you didn't put
I'll play with it again. Yeah, it's the finishing is a big trick. And the telescope I made, I put tung oil on it. That was a bit of brilliance. You know, so you take it out, and if you have a night that's really dewy, well, you just touch the scope and your hand sticks to it. It's just lousy stuff. So finishing is really important. Really, really important. Gotta tell you. That's it from me tonight. Okay. Lessons learned.
How's the guitar making going?
It's actually at a stage where it's kind of at a critical stage right now. I put the fretboard on, the fingerboard on, and I glued in the frets. And everything I'm doing, the stages I've been going through, they get harder and harder and harder. And this stage it's no different. I finally have gotten the frets all in. Then I figured out you have to make it so it's absolutely flat. And then after you do that, you have to dress the frets so they're round again. So that's the stage I'm at right now. There it is right there. So I've got all my frets put in, and you know, the fingerboard, I had to cut the fingerboard down so it was just the right width, and then your neck, the neck itself stuck way out to the side. So then I had to trim the side down, and so in order to make the fingerboard and the neck all one straight line, I used a router bit, and it's a flush trimming bit, but I didn't want to use it when the neck was way out there, because the chances of applying that flush cutting bit to a big piece of wood and then knocking out a big chunk of it, they're pretty good. So I got everything cut down pretty far, and then I did that. But putting the frets in, it's kind of an interesting process. And then that guy right there, at some point, if you can imagine this, if going back in that other picture, you pound the frets into the board. And then when you get up to the point where you're on the body of the guitar, well, you can't really sit there and pound on it because you're pounding on a real thin piece of wood. So there's another thing, they just call it a clamping caul, that you throw in through the sound hole, and you have it clamped in the inside of the guitar top. And then you have to clamp it. So you press them in with a clamp. Well, I don't have a clamp that has a far enough reach, so I made one. And this is called a cam clamp. And what I did here is they usually, at the jaws of the clamp where his cursor is, there's bits of cork where that little hole is in the you know, between those things separate. And then when you push them together, you pull that cam lever down, and that clamps it, puts a lot of pressure to it. And I put the cork on the bottom only. Actually, it would have been on the top piece, and on the bottom, where the clamp is there, that's going to be on the outside of the guitar. And I just left it wood because I wanted that wood to press down on that fret bar. And then I just press it and keep pulling the lever and pressing it down as I went, and got them down pretty good. But
now you're just saying you're just actually pressing them into the wood then. And
yeah,
that's what keeps them there. That's all. You don't have glue or do anything, huh?
I used tight bond glue. A lot of guys use. A lot of guys can use a fish glue, and they can use a hide glue. Some people use no glue at all, or they even use crazy glue.
Now,
what it is
is that fretboard? Oh, I was looking at.
Slotted.
I'm sorry.
The fretboard is slotted, and it's slotted at exactly 0.023 inches. And at the bottom of these frets, there's a tang that sticks down below the rounded top.
Right.
And that tang fits in this little slot. And there's little tiny burrs on the outside of the tang. And as you pop them in there, the tang, it goes into the wood, so it holds them in.
Yeah.
But having what I understand is that putting the glue in there, it actually helps them a bit for even sound quality. What I found is underneath, they cut the slots too deep. So there's a cavity that runs all the way through on the neck, all the way through on the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that with a thicker viscosity glue, and it's supposed to really add to the quality of the sound. It's important to actually do that. When you reach up at the bridge, when I get to that point, there's a saddle that's made of bone that goes in a slot, and the strings come over the top of that bone, and that's where you string them up. You can see the white part up by the neck. That white part is a piece of bone that's going to become the nut, and the strings are going to go over that.
Slotted too. The bone is slotted.
Yeah. And so that at some point, I'm going to have to be really careful that this bone goes all the way to the bottom of the slots that you made. So where that bone is there, that white piece, that was slotted exactly 1/4 inch wide, and I'm sanding this down to 1/4 inch. And I found that my opening there was just slightly off. There was a little gap in one end. And talking to some of the luthiers online, they were just saying, "That's great. Just get your piece of bone, make it wider, and then sand it at the you're going to have a little taper to it and tap the thing in, and that's how you get it to stay in there nice and firm. And then you cut the ends off, and you're there. But there's some really cool tricks that they use. Unfortunately, what I did yesterday, Mortals made a tool file, and it's a piece of wood that slides over the top of your fret bars here, and the file goes down the edge.
Oh.
The outside of the neck there. Files all these frets flush with the end.
Yeah, so you file them on top.
And then what you do is another
Hey, Tim, I'm gonna have to go say goodbye to some guests.
Hey,
very interesting.
Jerry.
All right.
Good night, Jerry.
Okay.
Good night.
I'll just finish this up, and then I'm going to take off too, guys. And
Yeah,
this
me
thing
too.
here, the last thing I'll say is there's another tool I made to bevel the ends of the frets. And what I ended up doing is taking a file that I didn't want to cut apart. And I slid it down on the side of the neck, and I think it dipped, and I have a big gouge on the top of my guitar. So I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to patch that up. But it's an interesting process. That's where I'm at, guys. And
What's that? What's the board? Is the board rosewood or is it ebony, or what did you use on that?
For
wood?
That is, I think it's Makassar ebony, but that's
okay.
That's,
yeah,
the
usually
fingerboard
ebony.
is ebony.
Yeah.
And then I have another fingerboard that I sent away for back east that is Indian ebony. And I didn't even realize that I got a piece of 4A Indian ebony, and the guy pre-slotted it for it, sent it back to me. And oh my God, is it gorgeous. It is, I would have used it on this guitar. It's just that I bought a prefab bridge because I didn't want to spend another 3 months building all the jigs to use with a router to cut all the slots in it. The bridge that they made me, I think it was something like $18, and it was just gorgeous.
This is beautiful.
You have to sand the bottom of the bridge because the top of your guitar, it has a dome to it. It's domed on the top, so everything you put on that has to fit perfectly, and so I had to dome that. But I'll just tell you real quickly that the sides and the back are made of Indian rosewood. That the top where the neck is there above the nut, that's an Indian rosewood plate, and the sides are Indian rosewood, back Indian rosewood, and then the bindings that colored with the lightly colored wood on the bottom and the top, that's koa. So I used koa bindings. And it's kind of a neat contrast. And so I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Spruce
it
top?
Is spruce.
Yeah.
Yep. Engelmann. It's supposed to be Engelmann spruce. The company I got it from is based in Vancouver Island, and they really specialize in Sitka spruce. They have a ton of it.
It looks very fine grain. That's very important.
It's not. When you get up close to it, it's not.
Really? It looks fine to me. I mean, I can't really tell from this view, but
the finer grain where you glue it up in the center because it's mirrored. You get two pieces, and
that's what I did. Yes, mine was like that. Yeah.
And so the center of that is real fine grain, and as you get to the outer parts, the grains are the summer and winter wood are a little bit further apart. Okay. But I'm going to I'll work with it for what I got. It's a lot of fun, guys. I'm glad you asked. And
very beautiful, Tim. Very fine workmanship. I got to go, guys. I'll see you later.
Me too. See ya.
All right.
Me too. I'm thinking I'm going to hit the road too.
I was going to show you stuff, but I ran out of time. So, okay, next week.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Nope, next week. Wait until there's another crowd.
Okay.
I'll try to jump in first.
Okay, do that.
No worries.
Toodles.
All right. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night. Okay, bye-bye.